So I think we good for the next or the first speakers of today. So it is my tremendous pleasure to introduce this first speaker today, Dr. Shin, who gives us an overview of the Human Cell Atlas, the goal and the missions, and some recent updates and direction as well. So let me tell you a little bit about our first speakers, Dr. Shin. So Jay acquired his PhD from the ETH Zurich in Switzerland in 2008. And after that, he has a research training at the Harvard Medical School in Boston, USA. So during this time, Jay combined both experimental and computational approaches to build gene regulatory networks involving angiogenesis of skin inflammation. So from 2008, Jay joined the Rickens Institute after receiving the special postdoctoral research fellowship, where he established single-cell genomic technologies and analytical tools to investigate the role of stem cell differentiation and reprogramming. So recently, Jay relocated to the Genome Institute of Singapore at the A-Star in Singapore, and he now initiated a new program on regulatory genomics and develop pioneer technologies to benefit both basic and applied research. So in terms of his involvement with the HCA, Jay is an organizing committee member of the HCA and also the co-founder of HCA Asia chapter. And he's one of its most active members who helped push forward the HCA missions in different directions. So without further ado, please welcome Jay, and I very look forward to your talk.
Thank you very much. I was told that I could take my mask off if I'm speaking, if that's okay. Thank you. Oops, not my glasses. Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for attending this HCA Asia meeting in Thailand, and thanks to Vardom and Pompan for putting this wonderful meeting together, and thanks for all the distinguished guests for coming here to really kick off this really exciting HCA Asia meeting here in Thailand, and we're very, very honored and excited. Through the kind introduction from Vardom, I've been here with the Human Cell Atlas since its inception in 2017, and I'll be happy to give you a very broad update of where we are in terms of Human Cell Atlas, as well as where we are in terms of Human Cell Atlas Asia, and where we are heading and integrating with the rest of the community here in Asia. I just want to really start with a mission statement, and this is really spearheaded by two pioneers of single-cell genomics, and we would really thank and appreciate the efforts led by Avid Regev and Sarah Teichmann, where in 2017 said, well, let's get together and let's create a comprehensive reference map of the types and properties of all human cells. And that's fundamentally important for us to understand, because we have roughly about 30 trillion single cells in the human body, and we want to understand in a systematic way how many cell types are there and how are these cell types talking to one another in terms of spatial orientation as well, in order that we can use this information to not only understand our human physiology, but clinically could have huge benefits in diagnosis, monitoring, and treating disease of future patients. And I think this is a great opportunity to leverage the technologies that have been available and accessible to us and come together as a community to really build this reference map that can be reliable and robust and accessible to many. So this is a very analogy, but I think it's very apt to really design a periodic table like Human Cell Atlas in that we can understand what are the molecular features within individual cell types, but then what are the differences in these molecular features across different cell types. Just like you have different numbers of electrons across the atoms, what are some of the genes that may be differentially expressed? And understanding this aspects will really help us to categorize and annotate some of these cell types that we are identifying in human body. I just want to also emphasize the key principles and values that we started off when we initiated the Human Cell Atlas. And I'll just read them out loud here. We really value these quality in our data, flexibility, Because flexibility is something that we also need to understand because there's such a rapid advancements of technologies and data being generated. We also need to understand what's the limitations, but what are the new technologies that are on the horizon that we can adopt and expand. And third is community. I think we are here in this meeting largely because we believe in community building and sharing the data that we generate in order to make the most robust reference map of the human body. Equity is another key aspect that we really value, and that's one of the reasons why we are here as well. Diversity and inclusion, not only in the subject of patients, but also representation through scientists and research capabilities. The fifth point is the transparency and open data sharing with their codes, protocols, and data. And we believe this is the only way we can accelerate science by sharing and openly discussing and challenging our ideas so that our codes and protocols will become more robust and reliable. We also value privacy and ethics, technological innovation, and computational innovation as well. So, as I mentioned, in 2016, we actually met in London, UK, and we had a wonderful kickoff meeting where hundreds of scientists around the world decided to initiate this Human Cell Atlas. And there has been extremely large number of milestones that have been achieved since then. And I won't go into every single one of them, but there has been a rapid participation of membership and institutes, including Thailand, to be involved in our efforts to establish this reference map of the human body. And we also have generated numbers of working groups that involves around standardization of analysis and technology, ethics working group, analysis working group, equity working group. And there continue to be additional number of bio networks, which I'll talk about a little bit later, to really stratify the efforts that are being taken place within Human Cell Atlas so that we can work together more effectively. So in order for these milestones to take place, we needed to organize multiple rounds of meetings. And in fact, the first meeting was in London, but we had a series of general meetings, including in Sweden, Israel, UK, Japan, and due to the pandemic, we had one in Austria. But at the same time, we had a Human Cell Atlas Asia meeting in 2017 in Japan. And that was the very first inception of how we can build a community-based in Asia to initiate Human Cell Atlas. And since then, we have been an exemplary model for other regional Human Cell Atlas groups, such as South America and Africa. And we have very honored to have them here and give their representation of how their regional efforts are going in Africa and South America as well. So we look forward to their talks too. So I just want to also highlight, the Human Cell Atlas community has been growing rapidly over the last few years. And now we have over 80 countries represented and 1,400 institutes and roughly 2,500 members. This is an astonishing number that hasn't been achieved before, and this is a real strong community of scientists coming together for a common mission and to really tackle the goal of Human Cell Atlas. And we're very excited and proud of this. I just also want to highlight that equity and bringing the membership across the world, that now we have 3 regional networks here in Asia, as well as Latin America and Africa, and the number of representations from these regions are also growing as we speak. So I've also mentioned that the Human Cell Atlas tackles multiple tissues because we want to understand their maps within our human body. And in order to do this more effectively, we created this 18 biological networks as highlighted here. And this is in order for expertise within these organs and tissues to come together and really drive down into what is the atlas of that tissue. And that seemed to be more challenging than we thought because how many cell types are there and what are the variations across male and female? What's the variation across age? how do you define healthy and how do you define disease? These became really challenging questions, and this community is coming together to tackle this one by one, and it's been extremely fruitful conversation within these networks. And if you are an expert in any of these tissues represented in here, I would highly encourage you to contact these coordinators and actively participate in this discussion, because you'll learn a lot. And you also realize how much you didn't know about the tissue you're actually studying, because there's a lot of complexity that are found in here. But these are actually absolutely necessary for us to define the ideal reference map that we are aiming for. These are just quick snapshot of numbers of individuals that Human Cell Atlas as a community has developed over the last few years. And as you can see, it's rapidly growing in not only in the number of individuals, but number of samples and number of cells that we're profiling. So this is really exciting. And just want to share a quick overview of some of these numbers represented here. So as a community, there are over now 100 million cells have been profiled. And if you were to include COVID-related research, there are additional 12 million cells that have been profiled through Human Cell Atlas. And these are just quick statistics to show you the number of individuals, number of samples that have been profiled, and number of cells that have been profiled. So this is quite extensive number, and this would not have been possible 5-6 years ago because technology wasn't there. But now with thanks to multiple technologies that are accessible, and reduction of costs and really innovative methods to multiplex all of these samples, it is increasing the capacity to profile a large number of samples. And this is going to grow and it's going to continue. So these are the other range of tissues. And in the public domain, we wanted to share some of these cells to the research community. So there is a database called Data Portal, which you can access through this website. And at this point, there are roughly about 23.2 million cells that are publicly available and accessible by the global community. So I highly also encourage you to explore this data, download and analyze it. I think it'll be a very fantastic resource for the whole community. I also want to mention that the community as a whole has been quite productive in reporting some of these discoveries that are done through Human Cell Atlas. And these are just a number of examples of publications that have been done for the last 5 years or so, where Human Cell Atlas effort has contributed to this production. And this is a way for us to really materialize not just data production, but into a scientific product. And we really encourage you to explore this option, and that is possible through submitting your manuscripts through a HCA publication committee. And there are certain criteria that will be required in order to your publications to be HCA labeled, but we really highly encourage you to submit. And remember to just acknowledge the Human Cell Atlas in the acknowledgement statements, and we will be happy to also promote your paper research in social network or in our website. And hopefully that will help your paper to gain visibility and also highlight your contribution to Human Cell Atlas. I hope this will be a good model for you. We're also figuring out a way to bundle some of these research activities into a large Human Cell Atlas publication. So I also highly encourage you guys to submit your work. It doesn't have to be finalized, but even if it's in the planning phase, you can submit your ideas, and we will help to coordinate which other research groups are doing similar work so that we can bundle your research for a Human Cell Atlas publication in a big, large journals, for example. So if you have any questions on this, feel free to contact me. And I think more topics that we can gather, we can really group the right research groups into the right avenue. We also have white paper, and this is stating all of our activities and missions of Human Cell Atlas. And the very first white paper was written in 2017. And it has been now over 5 years or so, and we are now revising this, or in fact updating this because of the rapid growth in data, but also technology and our better understanding of the human body. So Look out for this white paper. It will be coming out hopefully soon. But this is one of our ways to really illustrate large efforts that are being happening within the Human Cell Atlas. And I think many of you here who have contributed to this draft, and we really appreciate it, and thank you for your time for this. So this is kind of the very first initial idea that when we had Human Cell Atlas was this, let's have a first draft where we'll have profile most major tissues. And we have some healthy donors and limited disease, but to a certain capacity, we'll have a general understanding of the Human Cell Atlas. And that was our initial goal, but we now know that we can do much more than our initially intended. So we really are aiming for more comprehensive atlas in the very near future. And that's going to be all tissues, full organs, both cellular and spatial branch, healthy donors, and hopefully some mini cohorts of disease conditions, both genders, important geographic and ethnic diversity, and age diversity as well. And I think this is going to be the way for us to create this comprehensive atlas of the Human Cell Atlas, and this is going to happen very, very soon. So I decided that because I have limited time here in the audience, in the podium, I'm just going to highlight you to this wonderful journal meeting that was presented by Aviv and Sarah earlier this year in Vienna. And they gave a very broad overview, even detailed overview of what's happening in the community. And this is an excellent video that you can watch that I will not repeat here in this presentation. But I just want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the importance of equity and the human diversity. So there's been a rapid growth of development in various biological networks, and the roadmaps for these biological networks are being finally drafted and planned. And there's communities coming together to figure out how to accurately create this Atlas 1.0 for individual organs. However, many of these organs still suffer from some of the diversity aspect. And this is a data that was in bioRxiv for the lung atlas. And you can see the number of subjects that are profiled are predominantly from European descent, and Asians are relatively low. And this is not just the problem with the lung atlas, but it has been a big issue in genomics field for the last decade or so, that many of this genomic profiling data lack Asian genome. And that has really detrimental clinical value, because if you want to go see a patient, yet their reference is of different ethnic background, their clinical outcome could also be very different. So how can we create a way, a community to bring and make equity and ultimately achieve the complete Human Cell Atlas across the world? And I think this is mostly important for us because Asia is home to about 60% of the world's population, and the most populous countries also are here in China and in India. So there's abundance, genetic, ethnic, cultural, environmental, and socioeconomic diversity, but it really lacks kind of a governing body that brings scientists together. So that's one of the missions of the Human Cell Atlas Asia, is how can we break these borders and bring scientists together for a common mission. And so we have these meetings every year, and that is really to meet and discuss science and technology from all over the region and identify areas of societal needs and challenges and how we can strategize participation and representation and leadership in Asia. So I just want to give you that in 2017, we had our very first meeting in Japan. It was very small, about 50 attendees compared to the audience here today. We have gotten a huge improvement. And I just want to also acknowledge Piero Caninci, who's a director at the Genome Center there, and I hosted this meeting, and it was a fantastic kickoff to recognize the importance of having this HCA Asia chapter. And in 2018, we also had a meeting in South Korea led by Unyang Park, and in 2019 we had a meeting in Singapore, and due to the pandemic for the last 2 years, we also had a meeting in China and Australia, and today we have the meeting here in Thailand. So there's a growth in the community and the importance of having these HCA Asia meetings, and every meeting we come, we realize that there is a sense of community for sure, and sense of importance of why we need to meet together. And I want to give you just one highlight of one example of what resulted in from these meetings. And it was in 2018 when Shyam Prabhakar and Unyang Park and myself were in HCA Asia meeting and said, why don't we come together and share our understanding of genomic data and profile our immune cells across our 3 countries. And it was a very simple, casual discussion, but it have led to a very exciting project proposal that was granted by CZI. And we have profiled over 800,000 single cells since then to understand the genetic diversity of immune cells across the 3 regions. And in fact, it was so successful and the community has built so well that now we have included new members, including Thailand and other countries in Asia, into this consortium where there are about a total of 20 population groups will be profiled through this project. So I just want to kind of give you an example of how small conversation in meetings like this have led to a very strong collaboration across Asia. And we believe this could be done more. And therefore, we created a HCA Asia Steering Committee where we're going to continue to highlight latest research that are happening in Asia. And you're going to see great, wonderful talks for the next 2 days. But we also want to figure out how to identify flagship projects and strengthen regional collaboration. And so we're doing this through the committee members that are highlighted here. And Pampan is one of the members here. And the goal is to coordinate these annual meetings so that we can facilitate collaboration through identifying these type of flagship projects. So immune profiling was one of them, but we believe there are other opportunities to bring scientists together in Asia. So cancer, diabetes, infectious disease, gut biology, and genetic diversity. And hopefully we can identify key leaders in the region to propose very strong research ideas, and that such data results can be deposited into a data portal. And we believe that's one of the ways that we can reach equity and diversity through the Human Cell Atlas. So today and tomorrow, we're going to have 3 wonderful keynote speakers, Shyam and Sarah and Alex, who's going to give us wonderful latest research that are happening. But we will also have very exciting presentations that are latest science that are happening across multiple topics, including building cell atlases, infectious disease, technologies, equity, non-infectious disease like cancer, medical impacts, and poster sessions. But I just want to highlight that tomorrow we will actually have a dedicated session called Flagship Projects. And this is something that we're trying out for the first time, where we're going to have leading fields in these topics to pitch collaborative ideas, and that we're looking for any of you to just raise hands and say, okay, let's collaborate on these topics. So hopefully you will come and participate, and let's create another exciting flagship project that can happen in Asia. So with that, I just want to thank all the sponsors who really made Human Cell Atlas possible, especially CZI, who have partly largely funded this effort here today, and also the program committee that have made this meeting today possible. So with that, thank you for your time.